The movie begins in the White House, where the president is giving a speech while snippets of scenes show a terrible riot everywhere around the country. The president talks about how victorious they had been in handling the situation, even though everything being shown said otherwise. In her hotel room sitting on her bed, Lee is watching the president give his speech with her camera. Through her French window she notices an explosion go off but doesn't react to it, as it has become a common thing. The following morning, Lee, who was a veteran war photographer, heads out to the city with her colleague Joel. The two arrive at a riot happening in the middle of the city of New York City, the people screaming to the officials that they want water, while the police desperately try to keep the people back. Lee witnesses another photographer being hit by one of the police batons. Quickly jumping into action, Lee hurries toward the woman, pulls her out to the side, and asks her if she is okay. As soon as the woman pulls herself together, she immediately recognizes Lee and begins to look at her in admiration. Hoping to be of more assistance, Lee takes off her jacket and hands it to the reluctant young girl. Suddenly, Lee hears someone yelling about a bomb threat and quickly pushes the girl to the ground, covering both their heads. A second later, a bomb goes off and the area is engulfed in fire, the sound causing the survivors to lose their hearing. As soon as the explosion was over, Lee got up like nothing had happened and began to take photographs of the dead people on the ground. The young photographer stumbles away and pauses for a moment to look back at Lee, who seems unbothered. Picking up her camera, the young girl takes a picture of Lee. That night, Lee and Joel meet up with their mentor Sammy in the lounge of their hotel. After discussing current matters, Sammy asks Lee and Joel what their next plan was, and Lee explains that they were going to D.C. She tells him that they plan to interview and photograph the president. Sammy looks at them like they are crazy and warns them that they will be shot on sight. The elderly man attempts to talk them out of their plans, but they are adamant about their decision. When he realizes that they won't change their mind, Sammy asks them for a ride so he can cover the story on the front lines. Exhausted, Lee tells the men that she has no problem giving Sammy a ride and gets up to go to her room. While passing reception, Lee is stopped by Jesse, the young reporter she had saved earlier. When Jesse thanks Lee, the exhausted photographer gives the girl some advice and heads up the stairs. Once she gets to her room, Lee gets inside a bath and cannot stop the memories of all the horrifying things she has seen throughout the year flood her brain. Early the following morning, Lee heads downstairs to find Sammy and Jesse inside their car and confronts Joel. The two argue about letting the young girl come with them, and Joel manages to convince Lee on the condition that they would drop Jesse before they reach D.C. After driving for several miles, the group arrives at a highway where several abandoned cars are located. Passing the cars, they arrive at a border where they are asked to show their ID. Once they are granted access, they continue their journey and arrive at a gas station where three men holding guns are waiting. After negotiating for some gas with the men, Lee follows Jesse where she had headed to the back of the gas station, where two men were hanging by their hands, terribly tortured. Jesse is horrified by what she is seeing and she is at a loss of words. Hoping to save the girl from the man's questioning, Lee asks him to stand in between the hanging men so she can take a picture. After Lee's group had departed, Jesse was frustrated with herself for freezing, angry that she couldn't even remember to take a picture. Although she is sympathetic, Lee warns Jesse that they will be seeing worse things moving forward. After driving for several hours, the group finally arrives in Washington, and the city looks like a war zone. Suddenly, Lee asks Joel to stop the car and takes Jesse for a walk so they can take some pictures. That night, the group camps 508 miles away from D.C. and begins to hear the loud noises of gunshots coming from afar. While Lee and Sammy have a conversation outside, Joel gives Jesse a pep talk about the following day, lending her a friendly hand. The following day, the group finds themselves in a frightening battle between the resistance and the government soldiers. The fearless Lee takes dangerous pictures while Jesse struggles to compose herself. During the altercation, one of the fighters is shot and killed, giving Jesse material to take a picture of. The day continued as the resistance fighters managed to capture the soldiers and execute them. After a frightening day, the group heads to a stadium where hundreds of refugees have settled. After grabbing some food, Lee takes it to Jesse, and the two begin to talk about Lee's career. While they talk, Jesse begins developing the pictures she had taken earlier, and Lee compliments her on it. The following day, the group heads out of the camp and begins their journey, arriving at a small town that doesn't seem like it's aware of the Civil War happening all across America. After spending some time at a local store where Jesse convinces Lee to buy a pretty dress, the group moves on. During their drive, they are suddenly shot at and quickly take cover. Quickly getting out of the vehicle and keeping low, Joel speaks to two military soldiers who tell tell him about the sniper in the large mansion picking them out, but they finally managed to take the sniper out. When they started their journey again, Lee took over the car so Joel could get some rest. Suddenly, Lee notices a car following them at high speed and immediately alerts the others in the car. While trying to get their fear under control, they find out that the two men in the other car were acquaintance journalists from Hong Kong called Tony and Bohai. Tony decides to switch vehicles while Lee is still driving, and Jesse decides to do the same. Bohai drives off with Jesse in his car, and the group becomes worried when they're unable to see the other car anymore. When they finally catch up to the car, they find it empty, parked by the side of the road. Getting out of the car, they search for Jesse and Bohai, seeing them captured by men in military outfits. The group also noticed that the militia members were burying civilians in a mass grave, and they were sure they didn't want any witnesses. When Lee informs them that they need to go down to speak to the men, Sammy strongly suggests against it, telling them the violent men would murder them. Having no other choice, Lee, Joel, and Tony head down to the men hoping to reason with them. The leader of the militia refuses to listen to reason and executes Bohai first, then Tony for not being American. When the leader is about to shoot Joel, Sammy drives their car out of nowhere and rams it into the soldiers, pushing Jesse into the mass grave. Quickly dragging her out of the hole, they rush into the car and drive away while the surviving soldier shoots at them. Joel and Jesse break down in the back seat, Jesse losing her meal all over herself after making sure they have gotten away. Sammy tells them that he is unable to drive any longer, and they realize he has been shot. As soon as they realize what had happened, Joel and Lee quickly carry Sammy into the back seat and begin to race the car to a nearby military base where Sammy could get some help. The group drives through a forest fire, and Sammy enjoys his last moments as he watches the golden flames. When they finally arrive at the military base, Sammy has already passed away, and the rest of the group is having a hard time adjusting to the loss. Joel breaks down as the military officers bring a coffin to bury Sammy, while Lee sits aside, looking at the images she has taken. When she finally heads back to rejoin Joel, she finds him standing with two other reporters, seeming very erratic. When Lee asks Joel why he is so frantic, he explains that most of the loyalists have surrendered, and Washington was left completely defenseless, except for a few, including the Secret Service. His eyes glossy with tears, Joel tells Lee that they are too late to cover the story, and that Sammy and their other friends died for nothing. Even though she is feeling down about the news, Lee decides to check up on Jessie and finds her sitting alone by the lake. Taking a seat next to the young girl, Lee asks her how she is doing, and is not surprised when she hears that Jessie is struggling to cope with everything they have been through. The two begin to talk about the friend they had lost, and Lee explains that Sammy died in a relatively good way, as Sammy's life could have ended very badly since he never wanted to quit, even in his elderly years. After sitting quietly for a few moments, Jessie admits that she has never been scared his way before, and confesses that she has never felt more alive either. A few hours later, Joel wakes up to the sound of helicopters arriving, and watches as the army slowly moves out to head to Washington. When he reaches the car, he sees Lee cleaning Sammy's blood from the back of their car seat. The two shared a quiet look that said they knew what they were about to head into. That night, the group heads out with the military personnel and arrives at Washington, which is now a full-blown war zone. As the fighting continues, a desensitized Jessie becomes more involved, forgetting about the danger and pushing herself to be on the front lines so she can take better pictures. Meanwhile, Lee seems like Sammy's death has hit her harder than she has expected and has made her fearful of everything. While Lee struggles to function, Jessie uses every opportunity to take as many valuable pictures as possible. After a long and terrifying run across the city, the military group that Lee, Joel, and Jessie are traveling with finally arrive at the White House. As they take cover, the military blows up the walls surrounding the White House, killing the remaining fanatics protecting the place. While helping Lee calm down, Joel asks their rival journalist duo if they knew the president was inside. The journalist explained that the surrendered generals had confirmed that the president was hiding in the White House and that he was to be immediately executed. Suddenly, secret agent vehicles speed out of the White House in hopes of escaping, but they are immediately gunned down by the awaiting forces, and any survivors are quickly executed. While the others go to check the cars for signs of the president, Lee tells Joel that she is sure the president is inside, and the group quickly heads inside. While following the military, they hear voices coming from one of the rooms, and they find a woman who announces that she is the head of the Secret Service. She tells the military group who had their guns on her that she wasn't to negotiate safe passage for the president because he wants to surrender. Unwilling to negotiate, the soldiers shoot the agent. Continuing inside to find the president, immediately, gunshots begin to be heard as the president's only remaining protection attempts to fight back against the group of soldiers. Lee seems to have have gotten her fear under control and has returned to her usual daring self, following the soldiers with confidence and snapping memorable pictures. As they continue forward, Jessie jumps into the line of fire to take a picture, and Lee, seeing this, pushes her aside to save her life, but she is gunned down instead. Emotionless, Jessie gets up and heads into the Oval Office, taking only a moment to look back at the dead Lee. When they finally enter the Oval Office, they witness the soldiers drag the president from behind his table. Just as they're about to execute him, Joel screams for them to stop and asks the president to give him a quote. Afraid of what was going to happen, the president begs Joel not to let them kill him, satisfied with what he got. Joel gets up as if to allow them to complete their mission. In that moment, Jessie walks in and captures the final moments when the president is executed. Once she takes the picture, Jessie smiles and continues to capture every moment.